Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right in today because we're diving deep into Chapter 9 of our source material, and honestly, it is a total game changer. We are going to crack the code on complex reading comprehension. Whether you're trying to optimize your understanding of really dense philosophy or layer upon layer of literature, Chapter 9 lays out this brilliant, unified framework. It literally strips away all the abstraction and reveals the underlying meaning. So let's get into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the grand unified theory, then look at philosophy and literature, decode a bit of Toni Morrison, unpack Plato's cave metaphor, and finally wrap it all up with mastering the text.
Section 1. The Grand Unified Theory. Okay, let's dive into this foundational framework we absolutely need before we read a single word.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it gives us the ultimate formula for reading comprehension. Think of it like two intersecting tracks. On the top track, you've got context clues. This is how you decode unknown meanings. By looking at the words, phrases, and sentences immediately surrounding an unfamiliar word, you figure out what words actually are. Then, on the bottom track, you have analogies. This is all about pattern recognition. By tracking these patterns, you decode hidden relationships, meaning you figure out what words do. When you follow the connection between these two methods, they merge into complete reading comprehension mastery. You really need both tracks to close the case.
Let's look a little closer at that second track for a second. By definition, an analogy is a similarity in some respects between things that are otherwise completely dissimilar. A classic example you've probably heard is, a fish is covered with scales, as a bird is covered with feathers. Tracking these analogies is honestly half the battle in reading comprehension. Why? Well, because making comparisons between totally unrelated things is exactly how authors reveal their hidden relationships and deeper themes. Once you spot the analogy, you crack the author's code. You transform from just a passive reader into an active detective.
Moving on to Section 2, Philosophy and Literature.
We're pulling straight from Chapter 9 here to apply our new theory to some notoriously dense subjects. Take philosophy. The word literally translates to the love of wisdom. It's basically the writings of people who wrestle with life's big universal questions. But Chapter 9 reminds us of something super important. You do not need to be a philosophical expert to grasp these passages. Not at all. All the information you need is right there, explicitly stated in the text. You just have to rely on the facts, use your context clues, and make logical inferences.
Section 3. Decoding Toni Morrison. Let's move to and see how this builds as we step into our first case study from literature.
Listen to this excerpt from Toni Morrison's novel Sula. The bottom is a place where people and natural things are apt to go awry, where strange reversals of the ordinary are commonplace. Let's actively analyze this together using our framework. Morrison is using incredible context clues here. Words like awry and phrases like strange reversals of the ordinary immediately establish a world that is intentionally upside down. From that alone, we can infer that this is a community where the normal rules of society and even nature simply do not apply.
And the author gives us a brilliant, literal example of this strange reversal right there in the text. You see, the African-American section of Medallion, Ohio is called the Bottom, but the naming is completely upside down because it's actually located high up in the hills. The text tells us this novel is filled with images of mutilation, both psychological and physical. Because this setting is so bizarre and unnatural, setting boundaries and trying to control what is essentially uncontrollable takes up a massive part of these characters' lives. They are just trying to make sense of their world.
So, how do they do it? The text actually presents us with a puzzle. It states that a major device used by the people of the bottom is a universal one. They create a specific thing upon which they project the evil they perceive outside themselves and the evil in their own hearts. They project all of this onto the title character, Sula. Think about your vocabulary and context clues for a second. What do we call someone who takes the blame for others? Right, a scapegoat. By creating a scapegoat out of Sula, they're attempting to control their chaotic world. Just by analyzing the context, we've decoded the hidden relationship.
Section 4. Plato's cave metaphor. Now let's shift to our philosophy case study.
And this brilliantly illustrates how mapping the elements of a metaphor completely unlocks Plato's deep philosophical reality for the reader. Plato used a metaphor of people living inside a cave. Inside this cave, people can't see the outside world at all. They only see shadows of people and animals passing by on the wall. To them, these shadows seem totally real because it's literally all they know. It's kind of like the original ancient Greek version of the Matrix. By mapping this out, we see the two sides of his analogy clearly. The shadows,
represent copies in our temporary temporal world, while the outside represents the greater eternal realities.
Plato's main point here is that this temporal world we live in is really just a picture or a shadow of eternity. Remember, authors and philosophers use metaphors not to hide their meaning from you, but to make you feel and experience their universal ideas clearly. You track the analogy, and boom, you unlock the philosophy.
Section 5. Mastering the text. Let's bring this home.
So the crucial point is that combining these tactics transforms you from a passive reader into an active detective who decodes hidden meanings. Based on Chapter 9, here's your highly actionable 4-step process. First, look for context clues to build the meaning of unknown terms. Second, track those analogies and map out the comparisons, just like we did with Plato's cave. Third, look for the underlying themes, whether it's temporal versus eternal realities in philosophy or the upside-down boundaries in a novel. And finally, combine all this evidence. That is how you master the text.
To wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought inspired directly by our reading. What shadows are you chasing in your own cave? Really think about it. Are you looking at the true, eternal realities of your world, or are you just distracted by the temporal copies dancing on the wall? Use the analytical tools we practiced today not just for reading, but for examining the world around you. Keep questioning, keep decoding, and I will see you in the next explainer.